Hello and welcome. We are continuing to read Ranger in Time, Night of Soldiers and Spies. This is Chapter 15, Rescue in the Snow. Chapter 15 Vocabulary. Number 1, weaved, twisted and turned from side to side while moving somewhere in order to avoid obstructions. Number 2, clammy, unpleasantly damp and sticky or slimy to touch. Number 3, presence, a person or thing that exists or is present in a place but is not seen. And number 4, fade, to gradually grow faint and disappear. If you open your books to page 107, we'll be reading Chapter 15, Rescue in the Snow. Ranger nudged Isaac's cheek with his nose, but Isaac didn't open his eyes. The other men from Glover's regiment had pushed forward, surrounding the Hessians in the swamp. No one seemed to notice that Isaac had fallen. Ranger sniffed at Isaac's leg. It smelled of dirt and river water and blood. Too much blood. Ranger didn't want to leave, but Isaac needed help. Ranger ran toward the other men. Just as he reached them, the cannon booms ended, and a different noise rose up from the troops. Soldiers were shouting and clapping one another's shoulders. Ranger ran up to one of them and pawed at his legs. The man looked down and shouted, "We've done it, dog! The Hessians surrendered. We've beaten them." The man kept celebrating. Ranger needed someone who would pay attention. Where was Joe? Ranger weaved his way through the soldiers, sniffing the air until he caught Joe's scent. He followed it through the men and behind a clump of trees. There, Ranger ran to Joe and jumped up on him. "Where have you been, dog?" Joe said. He bent to pat Ranger's head. Ranger backed away and kept barking. Joe frowned. "What is it?" Then he looked around. "Where's our friend? Where's Isaac?" Ranger took a few steps in Isaac's direction. Then he ran back and jumped up on Joe's legs. He barked and raced back and forth until Joe and another soldier followed him back to the spot where Isaac lay in a heap in the snow. "Isaac!" Joe looked down at Isaac's leg wound. "Bring a cart," he told the other soldier. "He needs a doctor." The other man ran off. Joe wrapped his blanket around Isaac's blood-soaked thigh. He shook Isaac's shoulder. "Come on, wake up." Ranger licked Isaac's cheek. His skin was clammy and cold, but his eyelids fluttered open. "That's it now," Joe said. "Stay with me. You're hurt, but we've sent for help." Ranger stayed close at Isaac's side. When the other soldier returned with 2 more men and a cart, Ranger walked with them to the river. Joe and the other soldiers loaded Isaac into one of the boats. They let Ranger jump in beside him. Ranger sat next to Isaac in the icy, slushy water at the bottom of the boat. It didn't matter that he was cold and wet. All that mattered was Isaac getting help. On the other side of the river, the soldiers loaded Isaac into another cart, and Ranger trotted alongside it all the way back to camp. He had to wait outside while the doctor operated on Isaac's leg. It took a long, long time. Finally, Joe arrived. He lifted the tent's flap and looked inside. Then he turned to Ranger. "Come on, dog." He slapped his leg and held the flap open, and Ranger followed him inside. Isaac lay on a long table, his leg wrapped in bandages. He wasn't awake. "How is he, sir?" Joe asked the doctor. "Will he be all right?" "He should be," the doctor said. Ranger walked carefully up to Isaac and sniffed at his cheek. Isaac opened his eyes. "Hello, dog," he whispered. He looked up at the other men. "What happened?" "You took a musket ball in your thigh," the doctor said. "What about the battle?" Isaac asked. The doctor grinned. "It was a victory, and without losing a single man to enemy bullets. General Washington is most grateful." Isaac looked at Joe. "You'll have quite a story to tell when we get home. You should start by telling me what I missed out there." Isaac tried to sit up, but the doctor put a hand on his shoulder. "In time, my friend," Joe said. "You need to rest now." The doctor nodded. "We were lucky to save your leg. It's good that your friend found you when he did." "Thanks to the dog," Joe told Isaac. "He's the one who brought me to you." Isaac reached out and put his hand on Ranger's head. "Thank you, dog," he said. Even back in Trenton, in the chaos of the battle, Isaac had felt the presence of this golden dog at his side. Ranger leaned into Isaac's hand. In a little while, Joe left, and the doctor went to tend to another patient. The celebration sounds outside began to fade. The camp was hushed. Then a quiet hum came from a corner of the hospital tent. Ranger knew even before he looked that it was his first aid kit. One of the soldiers must have brought it here, and now it was humming again. Finally, his work was done. It was time to go home. Ranger let Isaac stroke his fur a little while longer, but the humming sound was already getting louder. He turned and started to walk away. Wait, dog. Isaac pulled the knotted rope from his jacket and dangled it off the table. Ranger took the other end in his teeth and gave it a tug. Isaac pulled back and smiled. I hope you'll come with us wherever we go next, he said, but somehow he already felt as if the dog might be leaving. If you don't, though, I want you to have this. He let go of the rope. Keep it, and remember me. Isaac leaned back then and closed his eyes to rest. Ranger carried the rope in his mouth and found his first aid kit under a pile of blankets in a far corner of the tent. Ranger nuzzled the strap over his head. The humming was much louder now, and the old metal box felt warm at Ranger's throat. Light was already spilling from the cracks. It grew brighter and brighter, so bright that Ranger had to close his eyes. When he opened them, he was standing in the mudroom, and Luke was walking through the door. Chapter 15, Comprehension Questions. Question 1. Why was being shot in the leg with a musket ball during the Battle of Trenton a serious threat to Isaac's life? Sample answer. Being shot in the leg with a musket ball during the Battle of Trenton was a serious threat to Isaac's life because the wound caused Isaac to lose a lot of blood. If this battlefield trauma had not been treated by a doctor, Isaac could have bled to death. Question 2. What were two pieces of good news Isaac got from the doctor who operated on his wounded leg? Sample answer. Two pieces of good news that Isaac got from the doctor who operated on his wounded leg were that Isaac's leg would heal and Washington's army defeated the Hessians at the Battle of Trenton. Question 3. Why do you think Isaac was able to give Ranger the knotted rope he had been carrying in his pocket in order to remember his father? Sample answer. I think Isaac was able to give Ranger the knotted rope he had been carrying in his pocket in order to remember his father because he realized he no longer needed it as a good luck charm. Isaac knew he was strong enough to take care of himself. Isaac also knew he had friends like Joe in the 14th Continental Regiment who cared for him. And this takes us to chapter 16.